Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's LinkedIn Live. I do these every last Wednesday of the month at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, where I answer your questions about protecting, scaling, and maximizing the value of your expertise. And so, just so you know, if you've been here before, I've been doing these for a while, but I think did not recognize a couple of you. So, I do post the recordings on my LinkedIn profile, and you can also get them on my YouTube channel. And I was just thinking that I'm not sure if it's still whether or not it's been rebranded. Maybe you noticed that I've rebranded my podcast, but these recordings will not be part of my podcast, but you can find them always at my LinkedIn profile. And I do have a dog who's been triggered by the wind, so you might hear her from time to time. So please feel free, use comments anytime, say hi. One of the things about this medium, which is StreamYard, I can't tell that you're there unless you can make a comment. And do know that it's a little bit of a delay between the time that you comment and when it gets to me. And so we'll talk about some of the basics of scaling our expertise, and then I will have time for any questions. And so if you wait to the very end, and it takes like, I don't know, 3 minutes, which seems like an eternity when you're just staring at a camera, um, that if for whatever reason you have a question, you put it in the comments and it doesn't get to me before I turn off the stream, I'll still get that question in the comments on LinkedIn, and I will certainly be happy to answer it there. But no formalities here. Please feel free to jump in at any time with any questions that you have. So let's get going. Strong 2025. I know it's shocking what happened in 2024 and 2023 and 22 for that matter. Great time to look at our businesses and rethink a few things, which is what I did over the holidays and what I've been working on with my rebrand to scaling expertise. The name of my company hasn't changed; it's still Think Beyond IP. But the new podcast, Scaling Expertise, and really my focus this year will be really drilling in on helping you scale your expertise. So, with that, I wanted to talk about some of the essential elements to scale your expertise based business. So, this is who I'm talking to. I'm talking to that expert who sells, high end, customized services to corporate clients. And that is a fantastic way to build your reputation and earn income. But it does have its limits. And maybe you're experiencing some of those limits where you feel like your current business model has tapped you out. Let's put it that way. Or you're ready to tap out. So, some of the pains you might be feeling. Every single contract is different and it's complex and a new negotiation with different deliverables. Every project is highly dependent on you, maybe even solely dependent on you. You have happy clients. That's the beauty of it. But you are exhausted or stressed. And that is because if you take a break, so does your money. And so, how do we build new revenue streams that decouple your income from your time? And so that's what I'm going to talk about. So the key is owning, protecting, and leveraging IP. No mystery there. Intellectual property is my jam. And so, what are the 3 steps? Owning, protecting, and leveraging. So first, do you own what you think you own? We're going to talk about each of these steps in turn. Do you own what you think you own? If you don't own it, what legal rights do you have to use it? Protecting it. Are you doing what you need to do to protect it from use by others without your permission? And leverage. How to create revenue streams that don't require so much of your time. So step one, own. We start with what assets are in your business and what rights do you have to those assets. And when I talk about assets, when you're a service based business, many people will say, I don't have any assets. You know, my computer? Like, what do you mean by my assets? And so, assets, when you're an expert, is intellectual property. And we use lots of intellectual property all day, every day. You know, we create it when every time we post on LinkedIn, we create it when we do live streams, we create it with our podcast episodes, we create it with blog posts, and we create it when we are working with our clients. So the issue is, do we own it or not? And so these are some examples of assets that you may have in your business. And when I'm talking about assets, I'm like, what do you use to provide value to your clients? There's something that you're doing that they're paying you for, and those are assets. You know, unless you're literally selling, you know, your labor, like you just say, okay, just hire me, tell me what to do, and I'll turn it in. But if you are an expert, they're coming to you because you have some specific assets that you use to create transformations that they seek. What are those assets? And so, you know, the examples we have here are assessment tools, strategic plan that is a deliverable, DEI training program that you developed, worksheets, templates, you know, every work product that you use with client or that you receive from a contractor. And do you own it? Is it something that you created or something that someone created for you? Are you borrowing it? And that might be something that you have a license to use. Like you went through a certification program, and as part of that certification program, you are allowed to use their assessment tools or their worksheets. I recently worked with an Enneagram, certified Enneagram provider. There's a whole bunch of numbers there. And she uses their assessments and their materials for working with her clients. She doesn't own those. I'll call those borrowed or licensed. Or stolen, which might be a little bit strong. I'm going to assume that if you are using something that you don't have the rights to use, it's because you didn't realize you couldn't do it. And let's take, for example, this DEI training program that you developed with your former employer. You did it. Like it was, they hired you to develop the DEI training program. And as I'm saying this, I'm just thinking about current events, but we'll put that aside for the moment. And you know, used your experience to create it. You to create it for that employer. They implemented it. Now you've gone out on your own, and you're using some or all of that program with your new clients. Um, do you own that? Do you have the rights to use that? And so that is the first step, is figuring out what you own. And if you don't own it, do you have the right to use it? And so for our contractors, you know, having contracts, are we using in former employees' materials without their permission? And AI, which, you know, I've talked about AI in a number of other forums, but AI generated materials, while you have permission to use it, can you ever really own something that is AI generated? And so these are just some of the things we want the answers to as we move through the process of owning, protecting, and leveraging. That takes us to the next step, protection. When we know what we own, that is what we use to provide value to our clients. We want to protect it. We want to get the benefit of those assets that we have created to provide value for our clients so that we can then leverage it. So, how do we safeguard our assets from being used without your permission? And that is not just from, you know, bad actors out there ready to steal your work. but we also have to protect them from people near and dear to us sometimes. So, the two key ways I work with my clients to make sure we're protecting their assets: copyrights and contracts. So, why these two? First, let's talk about copyrights versus trademarks because they're definitely confused sometimes. And so, trademark protects the origin of a good or service. So, McDonald's trademark tells you, oh, this burger joint is McDonald's. It's not a Burger King. It's not a Five Guys. It's a McDonald's. I get the package from FedEx or UPS because we associate different things with that brand. Versus copyright law, which protects the expression of how we use our expertise. And so I love to use this example as a really quick snapshot of the difference between what trademark law protects versus what copyright law protects. So in my example, HR consultancy called Diversity Talent Solutions, and you have a registered trademark on your very creative name, Diversity Talent Solutions, that provides DEI training to corporate clients. And so trademark law protects diversity talent solutions. No other HR consultancy can use that name to provide HR consulting services. Right. On the other hand, copyright law protects all the training materials that you created, the videos, the slides, the workbooks, the guidebooks, all the things that you created, the things that you use to create the transformation that your client seeks. I'm not anti-trademarks, but do know that the trademark does not prevent someone else from using your works. It is copyright law that prevents others from using your works without your permission. And that is why that's what I focus on, because I focus on maximizing the value of your expertise. And just briefly, again, I talk about what copyrights are a lot, and please do feel free to look at my catalog of prior LinkedIn Live videos. Again, they're all linked to my profile as well as the YouTube page, YouTube channel, about deep dives into what copyrights are. But high level, they provide the exclusive right to the owner of the copyright. Nobody else can reproduce it. Nobody else can distribute it. Nobody else can create derivatives from it, like taking your workbook and turning it into a PowerPoint presentation. And they can't grant third parties the right to do those things either. So that is why copyrights are so important in giving you exclusive rights on how your work is used. So that's kind of with respect to the world. But with respect to the people who are in our orbit that we work with, we also have some protection issues. And we deal with those through contracts, our contracts with our clients and our contracts with our contractors. And again, there's a lot to talk about here, but the issues that are really about protection are three key areas: the ownership, the license, and to the extent that you have a non-compete. And so briefly, in your standard client agreement, again, the assumption is you're working with corporate clients. A lot of corporate clients want you to sign their standard service agreement, MSA, maybe even they call it a vendor agreement. And it has some client-friendly provisions in there. So you want to make sure that you understand what happens with the intellectual property that is either created or delivered, because sometimes you're delivering things that you created before the engagement. And you want to make sure that you don't have provisions in there that are assigning all rights and the deliverables to the client. And even if they do have a reservation of rights, typical provision will say, the contractor, consultant retains rights in her pre-existing materials, but she grants a license to the client to use those deliverables, and then it will then say how broad that license is. And that license can be really, really broad, and we want to make sure that including the right to make derivatives and to distribute it and to resell it. I mean, I've seen extremely broad licenses, and so we want to understand that. And then a non-compete. Some clients will ask you to not use your expertise that you created and perfected and that provides value only to them during the term of the agreement, and maybe even for 1 or 2 years after that. And so, what a way to lose control of your expertise and really cap your growth. So, those are the things that I want you to be hyper aware of when looking at client agreements. And so, these are just some of the self inflicted wounds, you know, accidentally giving your client unlimited license to use your materials. That is not a copyright infringement. That is not a copyright registration. Is not going to protect you if you grant a license, an unlimited license to your client to do whatever they want to with the training that you provided. They ask to be recorded, they ask for the workbooks, and they can continue to use it with other cohorts without you. And then the other self-inflicted wound is not having agreements with our contractors. We are sometimes under the mistaken belief that because we, um, told the contractor what we want them to do and we paid them for it, that we own it. But that is not how copyright law works. The human being who created that work owns it unless there is a written signed agreement in place that assigns those rights to you. And so we want to make sure we aren't victims of these self-inflicted wounds. So that brings us to step 3, to leverage. Now we know we own something that is ours. It's not something we got from a certification program. It's not something we got from a prior employer. We are protecting it. We are making sure that we are paying attention to our copyrights and that we are protecting them through registration and or through contracts. Now that we own and control our assets, let's leverage them. What tool are we going to use to create recurring or scalable revenue streams? When we talk about scale, we're talking about increasing your revenue and increasing your profit. So an example of increased revenue without scale, working more. If I'm working 40 hours a week and I work 50 hours a week and I get 25% more because I'm working 25% more, that's not scale, right? Because my costs, my time, have increased in direct proportion with my revenue. That's not scale. I've not become more profitable. So we want to figure out a way to increase our revenue while also increasing our profit. And we do that through leverage. And the common way, oh, that's interesting, the way I like to work with my clients is to find a way to continue to do the one-on-one work. That's an important part of what we do. It's how we grow. It's how we create relationships. I'm a fan of continuing to do the high level one-on-one work, but also to create additional assets that can be leveraged. And by that, it's something that we create once and that can be sold, licensed, offered multiple times without requiring more of your time. Examples that I worked on in 2024 with clients, creating subscription. I had a client who had a very niche practice, and she continues to do one-on-one services, but she also packaged all of her knowledge into a subscription-based website. So for that DIYer who can't afford her one-on-one services or just doesn't, some people just want to do it themselves, she has comprehensive materials on a subscription website for people to access her expertise on their own. And that was created once, but now she can sell it over and over again without any more work on her end. Bringing in facilitators. Again, if you're doing that one-on-one work with your corporate clients, there's only so many in-person or one-on-one programs or trainings that you can deliver. When your clients want to bring in other facilitators, other consultants who are also experts in what they do, but they are being brought in to work with, in this instance, your clients to use your materials. In that instance, we want to make sure that you are protecting all of your work before you bring on those facilitators, so that you are protecting against the facilitators, taking your work and using it with their own clients. You want to make sure that improvements that the facilitator makes to your program, that you own them. So these are all ways that we need to think about the contracts and the copyright ownership issues when we bring in facilitators as a way to create leverage. Very important way to do it, by the way, because obviously your clients get that one-on-one service without you being in the room necessarily. Very important. And then the other way is licensing. When you have a client who needs a lot of you, and it makes more sense rather than you continuing to deliver your program to different cohorts, different subsidiaries, different offices of a client, particularly when you have a very large corporate client. You put your program together and you license the program to that client, and then they use people in-house to deliver that to their workforce. And so those are three ways that I have worked with my clients to create leverage in their business. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Again, these are some of the great results that we get when we use leverage. Revenue streams that are decoupled from our time. We create assets that can be sold or licensed to multiple parties. You get paid when licensees and facilitators deliver your services, subscriptions to create recurring revenue, and of course, you get to increase your reach and your impact by reaching new audiences. When you have different revenue models at perhaps different price points, then you get to increase your reach as well. So again, if we aren't connected on LinkedIn, please do connect with me here. Also, check out my new podcast. It's called Scaling Expertise, where I am interviewing experts who have scaled their businesses. We find out the ways that they have scaled their business, and also tips for how you can apply what they've done to your business. And then also sign up to my weekly newsletter, where I provide legal tips regarding protecting our expertise. And you can find that at my website, thinkbeyondip.com. Thanks again for joining me. Of course, if you have any questions that you would like me to address during a LinkedIn Live presentation, just send me a note and I'd be happy to do that.